Welcome to Systems of Existence, David. I am so excited to have you here because, for many reasons. First of all, every time I see what you do, I'm like, I want to learn everything from you. And it is because sound has been one of my main, I don't know what I would do or if I would still live if sound wouldn't be a thing. Seriously. It's been a life changer, a game changer, and every single day I need to have sound bath. I start my day with the sound bath. During the day I have sound baths. It's just, one thing that you said. I think it was in one of the treatments for addiction videos that I saw from you, where you were like, we need to cultivate a new practice where people are just like immersed in sound all day long, and that cures them. And it's so true. It's so very true. Because sound is, basically how we influence the water, and we are water. But before I dive into, my association with sound, I want to give the mic to you and welcome you to the show. And yeah, maybe you introduce yourself a little bit and why you are so passionate about sound and everything that you do with it now.
Cool. Yeah, I've got a sound healing college, the main college on the planet, Globe Institute. And I actually started as a professional recording engineer. And I worked with a lot of major bands. I worked with James Brown's band and the Doobie Brothers. And then I started seeing the magic coming across from different musicians, where the room would turn purple or I'd get goosebumps and chills. And I thought, how can we reproduce this at will? So about 20 years ago, I added on the sound healing program to the recording program. I wrote the #1 selling books in audio recording and producing that are used in schools throughout the world, and the #1 selling book in sound healing. So I've got a really unique perspective of how sound works physically on the body, especially for pain, mentally and emotionally, and even spiritually. And it's really a unique journey. We're now getting funding to actually do clinical research to work on some very specific issues, including cancer and pain, and even bringing people into oneness and unity consciousness with certain frequencies. And we've also got a grant for $100,000 to take our entire curriculum with 20 instructors into 2 Montessori schools. And now we've created over 2,500 exercises for kids from 3 months all the way up to 18 years, all based on the books on brain development. And we're now getting a grant to bring this into countries around the world.
I mean, it's basically the future. It's like mind blowing, specifically when we talk about, working with children and helping children, because children that have to live right now, with everything that's going on in the planet and all the stressors and the chaos. Adults have issues, but I can only imagine what it does to children, and specifically, you mentioned the brainwave states when they are really young, and how we can influence that's going to be really important for the future.
Yeah, it's really cool. I've been doing classes for online with 3 to 6 year olds, and I have
Mm.
this one little 4-year-old, Krissa. And at one point she goes, "Okay, can we make the sound of love?" And I'm like, "Okay, you want to lead it?" And she's like, "Ooh." And then a year later, I had my shift class with over 500 students, adult students, and Chris's mom was in the class. And I'm like, "Krissa." She's like, "Hi." I said, "You want to lead these adults who are still scared to make sound, right?
Yes,
With the sound of love?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah." And so Krissa goes, woo, and leads 500 adults with the sound of love.
that's
She'll never
interesting.
be afraid to express herself the rest of her life.
Yes, I know you start your classes sometimes with the basically expressing the state of being, right, with sound.
Yeah, yeah. It's really, we do this with autism, with dementia, and in our classes, even with the kids and babies or young ones as well, as soon as they can make sound. And that is to learn how to make the sound of how you feel.
Mm.
We had it down as babies, right? If you had anything going on, you let it out with a sound, Wah!
Yeah.
Right? And then around 1 or 2, it's like, shh, no more sound, right? And then you go to school and there's no more sound. You go to work, there's no more sound. And we lose that God-given ability to express ourselves freely. And if you don't express yourself freely, that's a blockage,
Yeah.
emotionally and mentally. And that creates physical issues, right? So it's really one of the first things we do is get people comfortable making sound again, because
Mm.
you had it down, and then have you make the sound of how you're feeling. And it's really cool for the dementia patients because they don't, I mean, they don't have to use language anymore. And
Yes.
they can still express themselves. I had this one guy at the dementia center that we work with right now, Calabria, in Napa here in California. And he's like this, right? And I'm like, I've been there a bunch of times, right? Because we got a whole contract. And I'm like, can you make the sound of how you're feeling? And he goes, oh, and then he looks at me and smiles. I'm like, yes, we got a connection going. Right? It was
So cool.
excellent.
I mean, and sometimes that's all it takes, you know, to release emotions, which, you know, obviously sound and water and emotions, it's all connected. Maybe, and that's why babies just scream and shout, they just release it, right? And we
Yeah,
we learn that we can't release it because we feel like it's cuckoo, but that's really, you know, otherwise where is it stored? And it keeps being in the cells of your body. And you mentioned using sound for pain. Every pain that we have is usually an energy blockage, right, from something that is not being released.
yeah. It's all blockages. You know what I've learned, and I talk about this in my book, is it's all music.
Mm.
And you can look at music from the notes or the frequencies, or you can look at it from the perspective of the actual timbre, which is a combination of frequencies, the whole sound or vibration of something. And you can look at the relationship between two frequencies, which is musical intervals in music, or you can look at the flow of music. And really, the definition of health at every level, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, or energetic, is smooth flow without blockages. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the definition of health, not only in the body, but also in nature, right? Blockages are the problem. You need smooth flow. And when you have music that's flowing, as opposed to a blockage, which is like,
Mm.
ah, ah, right? Then you have health. So it's all about getting past the blockage. And the blockages could be a frequency that's chaotic or a timbre or sound that's like that's not receiving and transmitting the flow, or the relationships have gone off between the parts, right? So ultimately, it's all about flow. We can work at all the levels: frequency, timbre, intervals, or musical flow. But it's best when you work at all levels. But flow is the whole deal.
Yeah, and harmony in the flow, which is
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
an
That's the
interesting.
that's the musical interval level.
Yes, which is an interesting thing to think about when we see each and every single one. And I know you work with the soul song or the U frequency. If you see each and every single one of us as a song or a tone, right? And we are here on this planet to basically create harmony together, a symphony, you know, divine orchestra, so to speak. How can we all synergize together? You know, how can we make it coherent or harmonic when there's so much interruption and there's so much, like, you know, chaotic frequency all around us?
Right. Yeah. It really comes down to peace
Hmm.
at every level. You can have peace as at a frequency level, it's a stable, consistent vibration. Instead of like chaotic, like fear, or anxiety, or pain, or stress, it's all about a stable, consistent vowel,
Yeah.
which would be, and that's peace.
Mm.
At the timbre level, it's a harmonic relationship of a chord, of different notes within the harmonic structure. At the musical interval level, it's also harmonic instead of dissonant,
Mm.
right? That creates peace. And then smooth flow, ba da da ba da da da, that creates peace versus or a rough flow. You can not only have blockages, you can have a rough flow.
Mm.
Right? So peace at every level is really the whole deal. The second you're at peace, then you are ready to find someone else at peace, and that creates a harmonic relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, because it attracts the peace, right? And if you have a disruption in your vibration, then you attract that as well. So we would probably ask, the young lady again, not the sound of love and the sound of peace. It's probably the same, right?
Well, it's a bit different. Love is a little more activated, actually, but it's still got a really peaceful component to it. I mean, it creates peace big time. When you're running love, I mean, you're really peaceful, right?
Mm.
But it's kind of, I mean, in the brainwave state, love is a little more activated than peace. You can actually see the difference between just complete peace and heart coherence, which is love in the brain. And then there's the third state, which is a peaceful state as well, which is a completely different brainwave state. And that's where you're one with the universe and in unity consciousness. And you can actually see that with the EEG map when you're actually there, right? So, yeah. I mean, really, peace is the definition of peace is a stable, consistent vibration.
Yeah.
Peace is a frequency humming consistently,
Yeah.
right? Or a flow. And so that's really the deal to overcome this chaos, which is, everywhere, not only fear and anxiety, but also just, electromagnetic cell phone
Mm.
energies and Wi-Fi. I mean, or just all the distractions we deal with. And it's really just a matter of a stable, consistent, which could just be an ohm or
Yeah, I
humming.
mean that's what I wanted to say. Usually when we look at the ancient texts, it's always the frequency of God, right? That's the universal frequency that yogis say you can hear that even in meditation. At some point, it just is in your ear. You can just hear the sound of God or the song of God, and it's very interesting because you can only hear that in silence, right? And when you think about what the world we live in, and you mentioned, peace, that's that stability, the consistent flow of a specific frequency that creates that harmony in your entire water or energetic body. And we basically don't even have the ability to experience that anymore, because it's constantly like pop up here, attention span like zero, and then news here, there, everywhere. So there's no consistency, and that's exactly what we crave in order to have that safety and stability and peace frequency at some point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. The good news is spirit is not very far from the surface ever.
Yeah.
We get lost, right? And also the good news is nature is a stable, consistent vibration that's totally flowing. And so that really helps right there. So yeah, so it's not far away. I mean, it's really and there's so many people that are running love and compassion and caring on this planet. I mean, there's so many people, may not be running compassion as much and love, but so many people doing caring,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's really a beautiful energy, and it's massive on this planet. It's really massive. I mean, people care so much for each other, and maybe not at a mass level as much as it could be, but at least at a local level they do.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's out there if we open our eyes and our hearts to it, I guess, for sure. I would love to touch more on the different brainwave states and how different harmonics and frequencies actually activate them. When I think of the brainwave states, I also think about, the states of sleep, for example. I love to use sound baths also while I sleep. But also, I mean, every day, all day, every day. I would say I use sound baths, but yeah, maybe how we can activate different frequencies or brainwave states and what they actually do and how they could help us also shift some patterns and some interruptions in our energy field.
Yeah. Well, the research from Jeffrey Thompson shows that when you tune your brainwave state, rather a rhythm to your brain, it's way more effective than when you just play YouTube, delta, theta, alpha, and beta. Now, delta is a slower rhythm between zero point 0.5 and 3.5 cycles per second, which is like whoa, whoa, whoa. And that's where you are when you're in deep sleep. And when you're in deep sleep, you are one with God being regenerated.
Yeah.
And if you don't go back for an hour and a half each night to source, you will die.
Yeah.
You'll actually die. You have to go back to delta every night or you'll die, right? It seems a little controlling to me, but it's no, I'm sorry, it's all perfect, right? And then,
Oh, it's good. We
then
have to plug ourselves back in and then come pop out, you know?
right, yeah, if we didn't go back to source, we'd be a mess, okay? And then there's theta, which is the dream state, but when you're awake, it's the daydream state, which is really cool for creativity. It's where we get downloads for, creative ideas for artwork and music and such. And that's between 3.5 and 7 cycles per second, which is more whoa, 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 right? And then there's alpha, which is a little faster, between 7 and 14 cycles per second. And that's where you're alert and present and not thinking, where you're present with the light around you, you're present in the moment, you're present with the sound, you're present with your body. It's the best state to be in for learning and the best state to be in for sports. A lot of sports companies are using alpha frequencies now to get their athletes into a state of complete alert awareness. Right? And then beta is for thinking, and especially good for overcoming ADHD, because the most common type of ADHD is where your brain doesn't go fast enough to get into the beta state. So they give people speed to speed up the brain, right? There's all types of side effects, and it's really horrible, right? So we can actually, with each of these states, if we find your delta, we can actually tune it to your rate, because everybody's delta is a little bit different. And if we double that, we get your theta. If we double that, we get your alpha. And then double that, we get your beta. So if we find your note or metabolism rhythm and tune it to you, we can now have the note for all the different brainwave states, including gamma, which is the main brainwave state where you're blissed out. And when you're in gamma, it also that synchronizes all the other parts of the brain. Right? So what we do here is we have a whole system for actually finding your note, where we play each of the 12 notes in rhythms and see which one makes you the most peaceful. And then we give you a CDs in delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma tuned precisely to you. And it's really effective for anxiety, for depression, for PTSD, incredibly effective for autism and dementia. At the Dementia Center we're working, we're finding the note, home note we call it, of every person there and giving them music tuned to their brain. And it completely overcomes the anxiety. I just saw an article on Yahoo this morning. It said the number one cause, or number one, they didn't say cause, but they said if people have anxiety, they are 3 times more likely to have dementia. So we're talking about getting rid of the main thing that contributes to dementia is that anxiety. And it's been really effective for exactly that. We've calmed the place down with 150 participants, 50%, where there's no more anxiety, and people are which is really good for the staff there as well. But it's also especially good for traumatic brain injuries, because the brain goes into a chaotic vibration. And we're getting you back to your natural note and rhythm where you are naturally at peace.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense with dementia and anxiety, because I literally just the other day I had a conversation with a friend about it. where I said, dementia can be a relief for people. They finally don't have to think so much about the future or the past anymore. They can be in the moment, which is what anxiety doesn't allow you to do, and that's maybe why the brain is then like, okay, let me help this person out in a way. Too much anxiety, dementia can be a relief.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously for, the family and like people that know the person, it's hard to witness someone having dementia, but for the person itself, it can be peaceful. I
Yeah.
mean, you work
Well,
with
there's
them,
so many different levels of it too.
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, at this center, more than probably about 2/3 of the people. I mean, always recognize their loved ones, right? There's only about a third that are really low functioning.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's powerful. I mean, we have to see that. And you said that from the very beginning, sound is like the only medicine that we actually need.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
ultimate medicine.
yeah. I like to think of it as vibration, which is
Yeah.
not just sound, but also electromagnetics, light and color, and also quantum as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of tools. I myself, I love to work with tuning forks as well because the vibration of that. So it's like basically giving yourself a vibrational bath on all levels. That's what we
Yeah,
have to do, you know?
yeah, stable, consistent vibration. We've also got vibrating vest with 6 speakers. We've got pillows and dolphins and vibrating tables, massage tables, vibrating lounges. Oh my God, they're so effective for so many different issues.
I love that. So for someone who might not have the ability to come to your institute, which it's still on my list at some point. When I'm back in the States, I will come for sure because you have so many tools. I mean, every time I'm on your website and I see the storefront, I'm like, gosh, I want to be there all day, every day, forever. It feels like a healing chamber with like the pyramids and like, all of the different things. And then obviously your assessment centers and everything. You also do assessing for the vocal cords, which I love to really
Voice
like,
analysis, yeah.
yeah, how do you maybe you can explain that a little bit better because I think that like the blockage in the throat chakra, we mentioned, the self-expression piece, it's a really deep thing and that's obviously very connected to our creativity, to everything.
Yeah, what we do is we actually look for how many times you sing each note when you speak.
Yeah.
And the research from the woman who created the program shows that when you sing, everybody sings when they speak, right?
Yeah.
Some people sing really interesting songs, and other people sing, songs that aren't so interesting. The, when you go through all of the notes, when you sing all of the notes, it's way more healthy than a person that's about to die. They stay on the same note the whole time because they don't have enough energy to get off of it.
Mm.
So the research that was done shows of 20 years shows different notes not being sung or missing correspond to different organs and different emotional and physical issues. And so what we do is we do an assessment, and those notes could become missing based on trauma or an accident or a birth defect, or it could come from a parent that is like
Yeah.
when you're growing up. And what happens is the middle ear, the
You shut it
muscles
down.
there actually turn that frequency down. And
Mm.
when you move out, you're now deficient in that frequency. Or a refrigerator, right? Your ear will turn that down over a period of time. And so there's many things, not to mention emotional trauma. I
Mm.
mean, those will delete different frequencies in your system as well. And so by doing the voice analysis, we can see exactly with the software exactly what frequencies are missing. And then we give you CDs in that note and have you listen to it and tone along with it in eval until it gets it back in there. And it's really effective. It's very cool.
Have you
This is this is really based on the fact that you need all frequencies. Every frequency is a nutrient, and that's from the research of Alfred Tomatis.
I love that you say it that way. Every frequency is a nutrient. It's like our multivitamin, stack. It's like a full range of frequency, a full range of color, a full range of vibration,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
Right. It's like the widest neural pathways possible. And nature has it down. They did a study in the jungle where they found that every single frequency was there created by the different animals.
Yeah.
And they found that when an animal dies that's carrying a certain frequency range, another animal takes over that frequency range.
Mm.
And so in the jungle you get all the nutrients completely.
Mm. I mean, I do believe that it's the same for us as humans as well, but because we have so much chaos and like, everyone is not really attuned to their own home frequency, we don't have the harmony. The symphony and the orchestra is not really vibing too much at the moment. And that's the whole issue. It's like we all have to understand that we are the conductors now and have to bring ourselves to that frequency back because, the harmonic flow needs to come back to the planet. And
It's
so,
interesting when you think of that. A lot of people say that we've gone out of tune.
mhm,
I don't think that's the main deal. I think the main deal is we've gone to chaos.
yeah, we have a
And
new
it's the
one that's
chaos
chaos.
that screws up the
Yeah.
symphony. It's like someone in the symphony going.
At some point, we all decided to hard rock cafe, or I don't know what it is, heavy metal instead of, Mozart. And
Yeah,
now we're like, not too nice anymore.
yeah,
It's too
yeah.
chaotic.
Dissonance can be good though to break up stuck energy, so it's not all bad.
Not all bad. It's true. It's the contrast you need, so we can go back to Mozart at some point.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear your insights on the 432 hertz versus the, like because everyone is talking about it's the universal frequency. And you mentioned that, it's not always good to just take any frequency and attune yourself to that. But is there one frequency you would recommend as like, I think of flower essences and the five flower remedies, the rescue remedy for like this universal, oh my gosh, if shit hits the fan, take this. So is there one frequency where you would say that's like a resetting or a soothing energy for all of us?
Yeah, I think of three. The first of all is the one we mentioned, and that's your frequency of you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing better than your frequency, that brainwave rate of your metabolism where you're at peace. But the other main frequency on this planet that we are tuned to is the Schumann resonance.
Mhm.
And it's a frequency that's vibrating between the Earth and the ionosphere, and it's triggered by lightning. And it's an electromagnetic frequency of around 7.83 cycles per second, which is like whoa, 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 whoa. And it's a B flat, actually. Now, that frequency is really stable and consistent. And every brain, there's actually research that shows that our brain waves are synchronized to that. It's the stable, consistent frequency that we're synchronized to. Some people say it's going up and it's changing, or we're having spikes. But I talked to Roland McCready at HeartMath. They're the ones that actually measure it around the planet. And he says this is not true. People are misreading it. It's actually even gone down a little bit. So it's still really stable. The problem is it's really not strong at all. It's really very weak, so it totally gets wiped out by cell phone towers and Wi-Fi. So we don't get it in the city very much, and that throws us off. They actually give this frequency to astronauts electromagnetically when they're in outer space. Also, by the way, when you're in an airplane on an international flight, you're above the Schumann resonance. So
Mhm.
I often listen to the Schumann resonance when I'm on a plane.
Yeah, I do
So
that too.
that's yeah, that's the number one frequency. And there's a study where they found that it actually makes the heart of a mouse, which I assume we are similar, actually makes the heart beat stronger for a mouse in a clinical study. Right? And so that's the second frequency. The third frequency that's really cool that people don't talk about very much, and that is these HeartMath actually measures it also, and it's point 0.1 cycle per second, which is one beat about every 10 seconds. Boom. Right? It's like a breath.
Mm.
And HeartMath has measured this. It's actually in the atmosphere. It's actually created from cosmic rays from other galaxies.
Wow.
And it's really strong in the atmosphere. But the heart math has also found that when you are transmitting love in heart coherence, your brain is around zero point 0.1 cycle per second.
Then you send it to other galaxies.
Right, right. There's some aliens out there sending us love right
Yes.
now, right?
We send
Into
it
our
back, you
atmosphere.
know?
Right. Some higher beings, right? Not only that, I live right on the ocean here. It's like when there are coherent waves, the time between two waves in a set of waves is around zero point 0.1 cycle per second.
Why is no one talking about this?
It's really interesting. It's like that's if you want to talk about the love frequency, it's not 528 or 432. It's zero point 0.1 cycle per second,
Yeah.
and it's like shown in clinical research. I mean, 432 to talk about that is cool. It's cool. I've got all my music tuned to 432,
I mean,
and
I
it's
would like to actually first of all talk about the conspiracy around it, when it was changed and why. And what's the whole deal about it? And because
it's
people say
ridiculous.
it's
It's
been
ridiculous.
hijacked and
It's
things like that.
it's just conspiracy theory. You know, before 1935, every country had a different concert. This is what we're talking about is concert pitch.
Yeah.
It's the frequency that you tune an instrument to or a whole orchestra. And before that, all countries were different. Ancient Egypt did tune to 432, so that's cool. But then around 1935, they had this conference, and because Roosevelt was in this conference, uh, uh, they chose 440, and people said because Roosevelt was in the conference, they think it was a conspiracy to throw us off. Everybody in the field that knows anything about sound healing in detail thinks that's ridiculous. Like Roosevelt really knew what he was doing, and it's not. And a 440 is not a bad frequency. I mean, 432 is cool, but here's the main deal. It's not that big a deal, right? It's not that big a deal. There are a million songs on YouTube tuned to 432, at least a few thousand, that I would never listen to. There are many songs where I've seen God. White light, room turns into white light, purple love comes into the heart. I mean, oh my God. Tuned to 440,
Yeah.
right? The music and the energy behind the music is light years more important than the frequency that something is tuned to. Not only that, I mean, 432, I mean, first they did 528. They said 528 is the frequency of love. Now Leonard Horowitz admits that there's zero research that shows that 528 has anything to do with love at all. Zero, right? So a lot of people have abandoned that. And 432 does have many auspicious things about it. Like it's like what they tuned to in ancient Egypt. It creates a beautiful little mandala pattern in each water droplet. It's also tied into many numbers, like the latitude and longitude of sacred sites. There's like the distance to the sun is actually 108 diameters of the sun, which is an exact octave of 432, which is also really auspicious. 108, because that's auspicious in India. There's many things about 432, especially the most important. It's the time I was born, 4:32 a.m. Right? And people say it's the heart meridian, but I have no idea how they measured that. Right? It's like so it's cool. It's cool, right? But even the fact that it creates this beautiful mandala pattern, cymatic pattern in each water droplet, that would only be if you're actually tuned in the key of A and playing in the higher frequencies. So in most keys, you don't even hit 432 when you're tuned to 432. I've been doing for 10 years comparisons between 432 and 440, and 70% of the people over the last 10 years choose 440. We're strung out. we're addicted. 432 is cool. I do like it better. It feels warmer, and there's all these auspicious things that are very cool about it. But compared to incredible music that brings in love and light, it's nothing.
I love that you mentioned ancient Egypt, actually, because I was in Egypt. I'm pretty sure you've been probably to Egypt as well, right? And
Yeah.
so the pyramids and the Great Pyramid and the Great Chamber as well. Everything about Egypt is, for me, anyways, is about sound, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I would love to hear your take on that. And also, obviously, you have pyramids in your institute. So give us an insight on the magic of the pyramids and why they are so connected to sound.
Well, the main thing that everybody says, including Drunvalo and people that are into it, is when you find the resonant frequency inside a pyramid or a chamber and you tone that, it opens up portals to other dimensions. Now, a resonant frequency is actually measurable. It's actually the based on the distance between two parallel walls. If you actually take the number of feet or meters and divide that into 1130, which is the speed of sound, you get the actual frequency that resonates between these two walls. So in the pyramid, in the Great Pyramid and the
Yeah.
King's Chamber, there are three resonant frequencies. One this way, and ceiling to floor. And those frequencies are actually around 33 hertz, 66 hertz, and 44 hertz. 33 and 66 happen to be the note of C, and the height, which is 19 feet, the 44 is a beat. So that creates a chord, and when you tone those frequencies, which I did for 3 hours when I was in the King's Chamber, you actually can open up this portal. Now,
Where did you
what
go in the portal?
well, I tell you, actually, what happened is I then leaned over into the sarcophagus and did a frequency sweep because that's how you find a resonant frequency. You go, and when you hit it, it gets really loud. Right? And so I laid in the sarcophagus and toned that resonant frequency, and it was intense. I went out of my body into the Akashic records below the pyramid. I'm like, whoa, there's a guy there guarding a door, and I said, can I come in? And he goes, no, your consciousness is not high enough. I'm like, shit, bummer, right? But then about a half hour later, the tourists cleared out more, and I got back in the sarcophagus and I toned that frequency. I went out of my body into the Akashic records below the pyramid, right? And then this guy was there, and I said, can I come in? And he goes, okay.
Now you're
And
at
so, and then energy came out of the door, which was more like information, and it came up my spine, and then I've been transformed forever. All of a sudden, I could do sound way better. Also, just last year, one of my students went there, and she knew all about this whole story, and she toned the resonant frequency of the chamber, and she had had chronic fatigue for 15 years where she could barely get out of bed. And she said when she was toning this resonant frequency of the chamber, her whole body disintegrated. And then it was put together, back together. And, and when she was done, the chronic fatigue is now gone forever, completely.
I mean, I would really curious to hear your insight, or if you have looked into that, how it's related to the hydrogen and hydrogen be because they say it's a hydrogen harvesting kind of like resetting technology, the pyramid as well, specifically the Great Pyramid, and hydrogen as like the most abundant frequency or like a molecule in the universe, and then also being the resetting or like the original seed molecule, so to speak. So that's why I feel like the pyramid is just a resetting. You know, it like clears all the disruption from us by attuning us to our original like state.
Yeah, back to coherent, stable,
Yeah.
consistent peace. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure about hydrogen. Our instructor Randy's really into that. Randy knows a lot about the pyramids. The other thing that I've realized is when you tone, most of the chambers in Egypt have hieroglyphs carved on the walls, reliefs, right? And when you tone, that sound bounces off the hieroglyphs, and because they're carved into the wall, they actually modulate the actual sound, which then comes back into your body. So you're actually getting those hieroglyphs into your body vibrationally just by toning in the room.
Oh, so it's kind of like a feedback. You send a signal to the hieroglyph and then you activate it and it basically comes back into your body as an imprint,
Right, right,
right? That's so
right.
cool.
It interrupts the sound in a certain specific way.
And how do you use the pyramids now in your institute?
Well, when I was in Egypt, I got a download to create the King's Chamber with a dodecahedron around it and an octahedron around that. If you go to our site, soundoflove.com, you can see it. And we now have it working in virtual reality, where
Ooh.
you can actually go in and sit in it and meditate. And we've got like different beams for chakras. We've got, it's really, it's unbelievably beautiful. And we also now have an architect that can build it. It will actually hold 25 people. And but here's the interesting thing. This is a little out there, but I bet your listeners can handle it. So I got many downloads on how to build this chamber. And then I was talking to a psychic, and she said, Dave, here are the three beings that have been giving you the downloads.
Ooh, I love that.
I'm like, really? And she said, do you have any questions for them? So for 3 years, I was able to ask detailed questions on how to build it.
Yeah.
And they said that this, if we actually create a grid with crystals to the dimensions of the solar system on the land around it, it will actually tie it into the whole universe. And she said that it's so powerful, you have to be really careful. If you get to more than 25 people in it, it could explode based on any negative energy. And actually, they did that in Tiahuanaca and killed like 3,000 people, right, years ago. Right? So she said we actually have to have somebody holding prayer. So it's a really powerful chamber, and we're looking for ley lines to build them on, and I want to put one in my backyard as well. We also have a smaller version that is tuned exactly to 108 hertz, and those are much cheaper. So yeah, we're
I mean,
building
you
sound
mentioned
cables.
432, right, as an important number. For me, it's 108 because that's my birthday,
Oh, cool.
August 10. So I'm always like, that's interesting. But side note, aside from that, which are the three beings? I would love to know. We love to talk about aliens, so and star systems and galaxies.
Well, one's from Sirius, one's from Palladium, and another one's from a galaxy where I used to live. Right.
Which one do
And so,
you want to share?
the one that from a galaxy where I live, his name is Aisne, although his real name is like. Right. So yeah, Also, I can tell you one other thing. It's really interesting. you know, Tom Kenyon is the most famous and most powerful sound healer on the planet. And he was a psychotherapist years ago, and these aliens came to him in his meditation and said they wanted to write a book through him. And they were called the Hathors. And he says, where are you from? They said, Venus. He says, leave me alone. I'm not working with any weirdos from Venus. You'll blow my credibility. I got a PhD here. And so they kept bugging him. And then after a year, this woman from a publishing company came and said, you won't believe this, but these aliens came to us and said that we're supposed to publish your book, and you can just channel it, and we'll help write it. And he's like, finally gives in. And now he channels the Hathors everywhere. And they're all through Egypt. I mean, their carvings are everywhere. There's a Hathor temple in Egypt where I had another major experience as well. And so it was about 5 years ago now that I'm talking to this psychic, and she says, Dave, the Hathors are here. And a lot of my students have seen them. They've actually said, what's that 14-foot tall being in the back of the room, Dave? I'm like, I guess that's the Hathor.
My friends
Right?
are back.
What's that?
My friends are back.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God. Right. So I'm talking to the psychic. She says, "Oh, the Hathors are here." I'm like, "Okay." What do they want? She says they want to know if they can build a superhighway between your pituitary and pineal gland so you can be more in connection with them and higher beings. I'm like, okay, go for it. My intuition has gone off the deep end. And I got another octave below my voice. So I can now do. I couldn't do that before. So it's funny. I talked to Tom Kenyon. He said, "Oh yeah, that's called the Caves of Brahma. It's a ancient area in the brain that for lighting up consciousness." One day, we're going to have frequency devices that will light up all of these areas. Got to be careful because a lot of people aren't ready, but we can also test people and find when they're ready. I mean, we should have a device that will light up the pituitary and the pineal and this whole
Yes.
area, right? We have to do a test because a lot of people have had. I know 3 people that were actually paralyzed from a Kundalini awakening, right, where they got a Shakti pot from some spiritual leader and they were paralyzed, right, for like a week. So you do have to be really careful with this. But we could light people up like Christmas trees. And then there's the work of Jeffrey Martin, where he's using ultrasound on microtubules in the brain to actually bring you into oneness and unity consciousness in the lab, and he can show it when you're there with EEG. And he's so effective that he's now actually teaching classes on how to incorporate oneness and unity consciousness into your life. Because, if you're one with the universe and universal love, why get out of bed? Why go to work? You become homeless, right? So, and also when you're one with the universe, there's no more anxiety, there's no more depression, there's no more PTSD. We're talking about the end of all emotional and mental issues. And you're freaking high.
I was just about to say, it sounds like we are just like high all the time, which actually brings me to another question that I meant to ask earlier about the brainwave states and, the bliss frequency and all of that and DMT, because I mean, there is a lot of, also research and development in psychedelic work and microdosing and what it does to the brainwaves. And also me, myself, I've worked a lot with plant medicine. And it always is connected with, for me anyways, with music, with sound, and also activate specific sound frequencies and pitches in your ears when you work with medicine. Like at some point with some medicines, it's like you notice the medicine is working in you when a specific sound frequency all of a sudden happens to come up in your brain. So how could we maybe modulate that without maybe using the psychedelic necessarily, but just with a sound frequency?
Well, it's really the music. You could do it with frequencies or you can do it with music. I mean, the trick is to really map out the brain as to how to actually, what happens in the brain when you access higher states of
Yeah,
consciousness. And then just modulate your brain into that brain map of you blissed out.
yeah,
And this is not rocket science, although it is dangerous. You got to be really careful because if you don't tune it to that person, I know somebody that got electrodes on the brain and they did a whole brain map and it threw him off for 3 weeks. He could not eat or sleep for 3 weeks and he almost died.
wow.
But the
Why
potential
though?
is
Like what happened? Well, what went wrong?
they didn't tune it to him.
Mm.
Yeah. But the potential is massive. It's really massive. We're talking about, getting rid of all emotional, mental issues. I mean, this is so huge, right? Also the other framework that I've figured out is I got this from a download at 4 in the morning, and that is we need to find the melody of each of the 11 medical systems, which is,
Each of
circulatory,
the 11
respiratory,
medical systems?
yeah, the 11 medical systems that doctors deal with,
Yeah,
which are circulatory, respiratory, nervous system, muscular, all those
digestive,
systems,
yeah.
endocrine system. Those, so with an electron microscope, we can actually find the frequency content of a cell scientifically now. There's a Raman spectroscopy, but there's also light microscopes that will even do it instead of in vitro. They can do it in the body. So we can now measure every cell in the body and tune. The reason there's frequency charts all over the internet for all different things, and nobody agrees with anybody on anything ever.
It's true.
Right? And so the deal is, we can now find, the reason is because it's different from person to person. Now we can find your frequency with this electron microscope and map out the musical interval relationships and the songs flowing through each of the 11 medical systems.
I love that. I mean, that in itself debunks and like literally discredits, or however you want to say that, the entire medical field, because it's like this one universal pill that you have to swallow for, I don't know, a kidney issue or a UTI, and it's just that doesn't work, you know?
Yeah, this is the new medical system. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny. Here are your 11 songs.
Yeah, just listen and be cured.
Right? But also we can find, by measuring all 70 trillion cells and using AI to map out the musical interval relationships, even if your cells are different, which they are from person to person, the relationships are going to be the same, we believe.
Yeah.
Right? So we find the musical interval relationship of the template of perfection for you and resonate your entire body template into its perfection again. And then I'm now seeing, I got it about 6 months ago, the end of all physical, mental, emotional disease.
Yeah.
It probably won't happen in my lifetime, but I see how to do it now.
Yeah, I mean, we know how to do it. It's just about developing it. And that's where I think it's, we can use AI and technology really for that advantage. And that's probably, the age of Aquarius, everyone talking about that, us moving into becoming more in tune with technology, but we can use it for our advantage.
Yeah, big time. The possibilities are massive. Got to be careful, because if people get a hold of it, they can use it to hurt people. Right? Got to be careful. So, but yeah, oh my God, we're talking about end of all disease, and everyone on the planet blissed out in unity and oneness consciousness. And when you're in unity and oneness, there's indescribable universal love there too.
Yeah, it sounds like everyone took mushrooms and is just having a party. I mean, yeah.
Right? And when you're in that state, compassion is natural.
Yeah.
Because you see the oneness with everybody else. So there's no reason, there's no inclination to hurt another person, because you see that as yourself.
Yeah. And
the end of all war.
Why do you think it will take so long?
Why is it taking so long?
Why do you think it will take so long until, we have that as our...
It's really, the number one problem is the basis of all sound healing.
Okay.
And that is, in physics, it's a law of physics called dominant resonance. It's actually called forced resonance, but I call it dominant resonance in physics. And that is, a strong vibration will overcome a weaker and entrain the weaker into the stronger. And the problem from that's really good, because we can use light and love and beauty and all types of positive vibrations to heal ourselves, right? But the biggest problem with that law of physics is mass consciousness. Mm. Mass consciousness has been running the energy of selfishness and greed and lack and not empowered for tens of thousands of years. And that is massive energy that we are totally entrained to. The second we're born, we start learning we are not good enough.
Yeah.
And I mean, because it's the mass consciousness. And
And
that's why
you
it's so
learned
hard to change, because that's the consciousness on the planet.
it's what I said to a client earlier this week too. It's we know love and then we learn fear. All we learn all our life is
Right.
like fear, fear, fear. We have to be afraid of this, and next thing you know, you learn that you have to be afraid of life, basically.
Yeah. That's right. There's another problem as well, and that's the way the brain is built. The brain is built based on neural pathway ruts.
Yeah.
And when you get a pattern that is reinforced over and over, that rut of the neural pathways gets really deep.
Mm.
And behavioral psychologists know this really well. There's so many books on it. It is so hard to change a behavior for most people, unless you've gone to a whole nother level of consciousness and you're not running the normal patterns anymore. It's really, which is, drugs can take you out of,
Yeah.
right? And psychedelics, which can
But
be
yeah,
very
that's what
cool.
I'm saying. Like psychedelic therapy with music combined, I think is a really good way to clear those neural
It's
pathways.
incredible. It
Yeah.
totally takes you out of those ruts and creates new
Yeah.
cool ruts, cool ruts, right? And so, yeah, that's a big problem, because it's so hard to change those patterns unless you're really conscious and really aware and really, I mean, able to use your mind in powerful ways. And most people can't, right? So that's another big problem that slows down the change as well, is the brain sucks.
I mean, yeah, and then we would have to measure like how many times do you have to listen to the song until it's finally like and literally landing in your system, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, some people, I mean, most people, the patterns of society are so ingrained that people aren't even aware of them.
Yeah.
I mean,
They think
I
it's their
heard this
own.
thing on NPR that was interesting. They were talking about how people make decisions, and they said if two people are together and one person makes a decision to buy something or get something, the other person is mm, like 80% more likely to go with that decision than to do it differently.
Yeah. It's basically attunement, right? They tune their
Yeah,
own
yeah, entrainment.
vibration together. Yeah. And it's like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, okay, same.
the basis of sound healing,
Yeah.
entrainment.
Yeah.
It
So,
sucks.
yeah, it's the
But it's really
blending
cool,
together.
because we can also use entrainment to sync to nature. We can use it to sync to our soul,
Mm.
which is really the essence of our being, that's really stable and still and peaceful. And the best is to be able to sync to source. I see source as all frequencies. When you're one with the universe, you are all. So by tuning into multiple frequencies at once, which could be a gong or a sound bath or even sparkles on the water or branches of a tree, multiple things at once, that's a portal to oneness. Because when you're tuned into multiple things, the whole brain's working, as opposed to one thing like the prefrontal cortex, which is going, where's the problem? Where's the problem? I want to fix it. I want to fix it. Right?
Yeah,
That's all the prefrontal cortex is worried about.
that's true. I mean, and that's, when the moment we open our eyes, it's like alert, right? To be afraid of this, have to plan this, I have to do this. So it's really about, I mean, I want to say when I hear you speak, I just want the whole planet to be enchanted by a whole symphony of music and blasted all over until everyone is kind of like cleared. That sounds like the cure.
Yeah. Well, tuned to you is really the deal. Because, I mean, when you just play, I mean, listening to music is cool. It's really effective, right? But different people have different likes and dislikes around music. And so that's it's a tricky pattern to overcome as well. But when you actually find the music that's flowing through not only all of our 11 medical systems and our whole body, but also all the meridians. I mean, every meridian is a song flowing through, and the acupuncture points are the actual notes. So, you know, once we get that music that's flowing through us down, that's really, and tune it to us and get that smooth flow as we started with, that smooth flow to get rid of all blockages physically, mentally. Mentally, when you get rid of the blockages, that's focus.
Mm.
Emotionally, let it go, right? And then spiritually, I mean, gratitude's a pretty cool flow. Compassion's not bad. Universal love's happening. Source is really cool. And well, actually, I was going to say soul is really cool. And source is the best flow of all. There's none better because it comes with universal love.
So if you would listen to a source all day, what would happen?
Yeah, yeah. Open up that channel, and again, it's not far from the surface.
Yeah, I mean, everything feels like, you know, we are needing to tune more into, you know, those vibrations and you know, using music and sound. How do you use, obviously you work with sound and music, but for you personally, how do you use it to create that sense of peace, harmony, balance, or in your daily routine? What do you do with sound?
Well, first of all, is to notice when there's chaos in your body,
Yeah.
which is tension, right? Tension or, you know, something. And notice where it is. It's often in the endocrine glands. It can be the digestion, it could be your neck, could be your arm, whatever. But notice where there's tension in the body. Then you've got to get to where you know you're home,
Yeah.
where home is. And it's nice if you know the note, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about where you're at peace and where you are you. And then you know when you're off and you need to get back, right? That's the most important. But any stable, consistent vibration, any vowel, any crystal bowl, Tibetan bowl, tuning forks, anything that's basically a drone or a stable, consistent rhythm is really good. The easiest are the vowels. And you don't even have to do them out loud. You can just go, right, and get that piece going. But here's one of my favorites, which is so easy and simple, and it's really cool. If you've got a stressor or something that's stressing you out, send the sound of love to it,
Mm.
right? And it could be, you know, it's like, oh, the world, what's going on in the world sucks. That is light years different
Mm.
than, jeez, ah, uh,
I don't even want
uh.
to address it. I want to look away. Can it just go, right?
Yeah, send it love. And you don't even have to do it out loud. But here's the last one that's really cool. Send that love to your own heart.
Mm.
A lot of people can't access universal love and oneness. In fact, probably only when I ask people in class how many can access universal love and oneness, it's less than a third, often less than a quarter. Most people don't know how to do that, but everybody can do this. Send the sound of love to your own heart. And that is so good. Not only are you getting the stable, consistent vowel, you're getting the energy of love.
I mean, that's usually what we all are missing, you know? That's where all the havoc comes from because we want to have
It's a
love.
pandemic. It's
Yeah,
an epidemic of
it
people
is.
not loving. That's the worst pandemic ever.
Yeah, I mean, instead of vaccines, we all get the sound of love, you know, injected into us.
Yeah, yeah.
It is what it is, yeah. All right, David, thank you so much for all of your insights. If you would have a tip for the listeners when they want to start using sound and incorporating more sound into their life, what would you say?
Well, any vowel, sing any vowel and do love. It's so easy. You can do humming if you just want to hum. Just it's just the easiest. But then there's a million things you can do from there. You can check out our site at soundhealingcenter.com. We've got our store there of all the different
Recordings,
instruments.
right?
I'm sorry.
Recordings you can purchase.
Yeah, we got crystal balls, Tibetan balls, tuning forks. We got my books. We've got all my music. I've got over 100 CDs. We've got videos, and or we've also got our therapy center where we can do the brainwave and the voice analysis, and we can do those online. And then we've got our research foundation where we've got the Medical Sound Association with over 1,000 doctors and sound therapists meeting bi-monthly to create treatment plans. If you go to medicalsoundassociation.com, you'll see like 30 different treatment plans for all these different issues we're talking about in detail. And then we have the Sound Education Association, which is all of the exercises for the kids. But you can find it all at soundhealingcenter.com.
Yeah, I will
And
obviously
all
link
of
it
our
under the,
classes, all of our
yeah,
classes too. We've got online classes that you can do, and we've got 20 instructors, so it's really effective.
and you have a YouTube channel where you also have a lot of, researches and like a lot of tools and a lot of video material, which I love.
Oh my God, yeah, we've got tons of YouTube videos and yeah, there's videos everywhere you go.
And there is also the Sound Healing Conference happening at some point. Is
Oh
there
yeah,
a next date? Do you know that already?
next day, it's going to be around November 11th. Uh, and we do it every 6 months. We get normally about 8,000 attendees and people that are, the top people in the field talking about sound healing, everything from complete detailed science to complete woo-woo.
Yeah, I
And
know. I love it. Every time it's just like a party for a few days, but I'm like, oh
you,
gosh, it's amazing.
you can find that at globesoundhealingconference.com.
Perfect. I will link everything down below, obviously, and hopefully all of the listeners go and find their soul song now with you and assess their brainwave states and find the U frequency. I would love that. And yeah, thank you so much for your time and all the work that you do, all the research, and definitely let us know when the portal is going to happen, right, in your backyard, because hopefully you won't blast the planet, or blast us off grid, but I definitely feel that that's going to be a powerful, powerful portal that is needed.
Well, thanks for having